Welcome everyone to Half Torqued Car Audio Edition. Today we're working on a BMW M2 Competition. Now, this car has the Harman Kardon 12-speaker audio system. It sounds pretty good for the most part, but we want a little extra bump in the trunk. Today, with cars such as these, they have CAN bus systems, fake engine noise canceling, all kinds of stuff. So it's harder and harder to integrate aftermarket audio systems into these cars. So we're going to do a little bit of testing and see what we got. So first off, anytime you do something like this, just do your research. You can Google your make, model, year, and then add a sub. So for this one, it'll be 2020 M2 Competition, add a sub. You'll probably find forums where people have already done it, done the testing for you, done it the wrong way, and you'll probably find harnesses, adapters, brackets, mostly everything you need to make it a lot easier for you. Today we got two harnesses that we're going to be putting in here. It's the ASD, or Active Sound Design bypass harness. Shown right here. It's from a company called Technic PMP down in Florida. And we also have the Add a Sub harness. Shown right there. And it's going to make it a whole lot easier for us to add a sub. It gives us a couple wires to branch off of to feed the amp. It gives us the remote turn on, and using those harnesses we can kind of figure out what's on the amp. We're also going to do some testing with voltmeter and show you a couple cool tricks with the speaker. We're going to get started by removing some of the trunk panels to get to the battery and factory Harman Kardon amp. So first we'll remove this big panel, which has the battery below it. You'll see some wires in there that I've already ran, but we'll go through everything. Next, we're going to add a blanket to cover this so you don't end up scratching anything. Been down that road too many times. I just got my daughter's little fleece blanket we're going to throw over here. Alright, so next, there's this little cover on this hook we're going to pry off. Just get a pry tool, get right under it. It just pops right up. And then you need a Torx T40, either socket or just one of the Torx wrenches, like an Allen wrench. Next, you need a pry tool that's got little prongs on it, or one of the metal ones to get up into these little clips. And we have one clip right here with the hook, another clip on the top under here, and then there's another clip up here that the seat has to be folded down to get to. So we got one right here. Pry it up, pull it out. Got one right here. Pry it up, pull it out. We got one way back here. Pull that one out. And next, I found it easiest to just take this molding off. Put it back on there when you're done. Set that aside. I just take it all the way off, all the way over here. Next, there's two clips on this panel, this plastic panel right here. And then the same way, pry them off, pull it out. And there's one right here. And you want to use a plastic pry tool. If you don't, you will scratch them and mar them up and they look like crap. And then this thing's kind of weird. You have to kind of pull it up at an angle. If you don't pull it right, it won't come out. Oh wait, sorry. There's a couple more clips. 2 more clips right here by the hooks. Right in front of my face.
Total of 4.
There we go. And then if you kind of pull the bottom up, just kind of shimmy it out like that, you can see how those prongs kind of go down at an angle like that. So if you pull it straight up or straight out, it doesn't want to come out. After you get that out, you can pull this panel out. This right here, there's a metal piece, part of the body that's under here that you have to get it up and over, and also this hook. So you got to get around that, pull that up, and then you want to pull it down under the back seat release. Kind of got to do it all at the same time. And then pull it out, and then back behind here is this cigarette lighter plug, and there's no tab. You just pull it off. Just comes straight off. And you can remove this whole piece. Just turn it up, pull it out. So when adding a sub, you need 4 things, 4 basic things. You need power to the amp, ground to the amp, some way to tell the amp to turn on. We'll get more into that here in a minute. And signal to feed the amp. So here in the trunk, we got everything we need, fortunately. We have power from the battery. We have ground from the battery. We have our Harman Kardon amp, which with the add a sub harness from Technic PMP gives us our signal to feed the amp. And it also comes with a remote turn on. We're not going to use that though. We're going to use something a little different. So I've already got these harnesses out, but they're really easy. They're snapped in like this. So what you'll do is you'll push the tab in, flip it up, and as you push it towards the top, it'll push it out of the amplifier and out of the ASD module. And then to get it back in, they need to be flipped up all the way. If you try to push it in while the lever's down at all, it won't go in. It actually connects to a little prong, and that's how it pulls itself in, is as that turns backwards like that, and it'll snap down and hold itself in. So for a lot of amplifiers, they're all mostly the same. You have signal coming from the head unit, which is usually little teeny tiny wires, which we see 4 pairs of little teeny tiny wires. For the regular speakers, you'll see a little bit bigger pairs, which here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 a little bit bigger pairs. And then for subwoofers, factory subwoofers or something like that, you'll see even bigger pairs, which we have 2 bigger pairs right here. So this is supposedly a 12 speaker system, but in this system you'll actually see there's 5 regular speakers. So we can already tell from this one, just from looking at this, all 12 speakers aren't on their independent channels, because if they were, you'd have 12 of these right here, and there's only 5. So one way you can tell is a toner of some kind. Now there's toners on Amazon that you can get. So this is a toner. There's a bunch of different ones on Amazon you can get. I've got this one from an old job I had, and it's a telephone toner. And what you can do is you can hook it up straight to a speaker. You can just hook it up straight to the wires down here, and it makes a little ringing noise. And that way you know which speakers are which. So we can do that for this, but you need another little tool. I'll show you what they are. It's these guys. You can get these on Amazon for nothing, $5–10 bucks, I think they were. Little wires connected to a big long needle, basically. And as you screw them up into this part, it'll screw it up and it'll poke through the wire and connect to the actual wire inside the jacket. That way you don't have to disconnect anything. So that's what we're going to do here. So we've got these poked through the wires, and then we're going to connect them to our toner. It doesn't matter which one. This is AC, so it doesn't matter. Just connect one to one, and then connector one to the other side. And then we can go in the car and figure out which wire, which speaker it feeds. It's not on this side, but I do hear it. That one either. It's gonna be one of our back speakers. Passenger side speaker up here. So that was the yellow. Blue. Yeah. Now what? Blue.
It's the tweeter.
Ding ding ding. Is that on the driver or passenger side?
Yep.
But here, you got the tweeter, and you got it coming out of the mid-range at the same time. So that one pair of wires, which is the blue, red, and blue-brown that are twisted together here, is your passenger side door. We'll go to the next one, which will be, we can just do the white pair here. And like you see here, usually when they're twisted together, it's because it's going to the same thing. We got another one, which should be in the center. That's our driver's side rear. All you gotta do is just put your ear up to it and hear it out of the tweeter, and you can hear it out of the mid-range. So those are our 5 pairs that are the same size. Now that was these 5 right here that were the same size. So we know those 5, each pair is feeding 2 speakers. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And then we got to see where these 2 go, which I'm assuming these are our subwoofers, which would be 11 and 12, and that's why they consider this a 12 speaker system. This will be one subwoofer. Yep, it's over here. That's the passenger sub. You can just barely hear it, but you can hear it. That was the blue and red and blue brown. That are these big thicker wires here that are twisted. And we got one more big twisted pair, which should be the driver sub, which is a black and brown and a black and red. Let's see if we can hear it. Yep, and that's our driver sub. That's an easy way to identify wires. Even though it's one pair of wires, if it's going to two speakers without cutting anything. Now, in this amplifier harness, we have 4 little pairs of wires. Let's see if I can get this right here. We have 2 big thick wires, which are probably going to be ground and power. And then we have these 2 little yellow wires, which are probably for the CAN bus. So an easy way to check for what those are, we do the same thing, but we're going to use our voltmeter. So an easy way to test for a ground is on some of these voltmeters, they look a little different, but you want to get to where the little symbol, let's see, looks like either the ohm, and it has a little speaker on it. That way, whenever you touch the 2 together, they make a noise. So when you have a ground, just say on your battery, and a ground of a bolt or the car, let's see, over here, you know that's a good ground, or that's a ground, not necessarily good. But we can put one of these leads right here on the negative of the battery, and then we can actually, we'll take this off and use, that's what another thing that these little guys are for with the big long needles, is you can just stick these in your voltmeter, take this off. Or if you have something tiny that you can stick on there, you can just get a little alligator clip from your voltmeter, stick it on that and stick it down in there. But we can find out in these little teeny tiny holes which one is which. So another thing you can do, which is cool about this harness, is that these come out. So you'll just take this and actually just pull it out. There's a little tab that's right there. So you pull this out a little bit and you can push on that tab. Push the connector out of there. Let's see if I can get it. Just like that. And the whole thing, you'll kind of want to remember which one's which. Most likely you probably can't put the one that's supposed to go over here. They probably make it where you can't. But just in case, do one at a time. So this one you can see has one of these big wires on it. So we'll check and see if that's a ground. So that one is the 4th one over here. Now if we have this one on our ground wire, here's the pin. That should ohm it out. You can see this red wire with the big stripe on it is a ground. Now we know this one is our subwoofer that was twisted together, so we have subwoofer, positive and negative, I don't know which one's which yet. And then we have a ground, which is also this little contact right there. We have a couple speaker wires, and these most likely are inputs, these 2 that are twisted together. Usually if it's something twisted together, it's probably some kind of signal, because it helps filter out noise when they're twisted together. So we'll put that one back in. You just slide it back in there and it'll clip in on its own. And we're going to do the same thing for the other side. Just take our lead here, pull that out, push it out, and they slide out. So we'll put this back on our ground. Take this little black guy. We'll see what this is. So we know that this is our other subwoofer. We know that these 3 are speaker wires. We know these 2 tiny wires right here probably aren't going to be power, but we want to check and make sure this is ground. So that's showing ground 2 right now. So we got 2 big wires that are showing ground. But here's where it gets tricky. So the car's off right now, totally off. If we wake it up, let's see if it does something different. We're back after a couple of days.
All the fuses.
Yeah. After it's been to the dealer 8 times. Now, this is something I wanted to go over earlier. So, we established that 1, 2, 3, 4. No, that's not right. Established we had. I think it's these 3. Yeah, these 3 right here, speaker wires, go into speakers in the car. These are going to be either input or data bus. We'll get to that later. This is our subwoofer, the blue one over here. And you should have a power and a ground, right? So we got our black lead right here on the ground. And if we touch it to the battery right here, shows we got 12.6 volts. So on one of these, we should have 12.6 volts. We don't have anything on that one, and it's pure 0. So that's probably our ground. And then if we put that one back in so we don't get it confused. And all you really have to do is just take your fingernail, pull it to the side, and slide them out. They'll come right out. In theory, we should have at least 1 power on this one, but we don't. Earlier, we said that this one does have power, but turn the car all the way off and let it sit for a while. Put the keys somewhere else, because just walking up to the car with your keys can go ahead and start this. But if we put our red lead on it now, we have nothing. We have 0.6 volts. And if we go and we get the keys, let's see if we can put that in there where it'll stay. There's our 0.6, and if I go get the keys,
Yep.
there it is. Just coming near the car with the keys gets everything started for the car. And that's what a lot of these new cars are doing. As soon as you walk up to it, everything's starting up. Your amplifier's starting up, because when you open the door, you have to have door chimes, which comes through the amplifier. So this red wire here is a switched wire. It's not a constant. So anywho, move on from that harness. We figured out everything we need to figure out. We figured out which ones are speakers, which ones are subwoofers, which ones are power, which ones are ground. Going into the Technic P&P harness, it comes with out the tape. I put the tape on there just to make it look a little bit better, help protect it. But this actually went to another harness, which looks like this on the other side, which goes into that. But coming out of that harness was a high level to low level adapter. So I cut that off, and we're using a different high level to low level adapter, which is our audio control LC2I. So all you have to do is just put it on your plug. Your black stripes, so your white and black will be your negative, and your gray and black will be your negative. Your solid white would be your positive, and your solid gray would be your positive. Those are your normal colors. And that's what will go into the LC2I. But this gives you your, if you look and see which ones that these are connected to, it's your 2 sub wires. So you have wire here in the back, these last 2, which on this one is the blue, which we know that's our sub, and then the 2 white ones, which is our other speaker wire, is our other sub. So it's tapping off of the 2 sub wires to give us our output into the LC2I, which is going to be a fair amount of power. That's why I went for a better high level to low level adapter. I'm sure the one that they give you is pretty good. It's probably meant to take the voltage, but I wanted a little bit better one. So another thing you want to check for when you're doing something like this is how the amplifier for the subwoofer that you're putting in is going to turn on. A lot of them have signal sense, which is AC, the actual signal coming through the speaker wire that's feeding the amp if it has a high level input. DC offset, which is what we're going to show you, or a remote wire. So I've seen a lot of people they'll go to a fuse box, go over here to the fuse box and find a fuse that it doesn't turn on until the car turns on, which is most of the time pretty reliable. But a lot easier solution, so you don't even have to do that, is your DC offset. And that DC offset can turn your high level to low level on, like a audio control LC2i that we have here, or the amp itself has DC offset. So what we're going to do is put your voltmeter on DC, which is the flat with the 3 dots under it, flat line with the 3 dots under it. Put your negative lead on a ground, or since we got the battery right here, we're just going to put it right here on the battery. And you want to find a speaker wire. Normally it'll be on a driver's side, or it could be on all of them, or it just could be on the driver front. But start with your driver front. This one's it's actually here on the sub. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna put your red lead on one of the positive wires, which we know this white one, solid white one's the positive. Stick it in there. Now, right now we don't have anything, but if we go and open the door and tell the car, we're about to turn it on, see it goes up to 10 volts. Now after a while, it looks like it's only about 10 or 15 seconds on this car, you'll see it go away. But if we got into the car, started it, and kept on going, that 10 volts would stay. Now usually, there it goes, it's gone. So usually it's 6 volts, but I guess on this car they've made it to where it's 10. Now if I go shut the door, you'll see it comes back, because it just all the car knows is something's happening. You might have just got in the car, so it's turning it back on to make sure you got what you need whenever you get back in the car. It doesn't know what just happened, so either way, when you open or close the door, your 10 volts comes on. And what that's doing is telling these factory amplifiers to come on. So that's what we're going to use, and that 10 volts can tell the LC2i to turn on. That's part of the GTO, or great turn on, that it has. So we're going to enable the great turn on. It's going to use that 10 volts to turn the high level to low level adapter on. And then this has also got a remote out for 12 volt DC that's going to turn our sub on. So all in all, this is really simple to hook up. Like I said, if you order the Technic PMP, it comes with that extra harness that I've cut that already has the high level to low level adapter. I think it already has a remote turn on also. So this is the gray adapter here. Is what goes into the ASD module, which is the one over here that's mounted vertically. And you're going to use your ASD bypass, plug it in. You want to make sure this is always all the way at the top, because there's these 2 little prongs, and there's a little piece in there that it gets caught on, which is, it's hard to see it, but it's right there, which those 2 grooves have to go, these 2 prongs on this have to go in those 2 grooves as it slides in. So make sure it's all the way at the top, snapped up there, push it in, and then pull it back. And as you pull it back, it'll pull itself into the connector. So you'll do the same thing with the connector. Plug that in down here into the ASD. Make sure it snaps in. And then this is the bypass harness, so you'll do the same thing with it. On the right orientation. sure it's at the top, push it in, and then pull it back, and as you pull it back, it pulls the stuff into the connector. So this part goes into the factory amplifier. This is the part that'll feed the high level to low level adapter. Or if you have a high level to low level adapter built into your sub amplifier, you can just do it straight into your sub amplifier. Plug that in. Alright, so I already had these made up, but here is the black and red wire that is let's see, it's going to be our 12 volt and ground for the LC2I, and then this top black wire is the remote out that actually goes, that's this one right here. It's going to go down and it feeds with our wire all the way up to our amp. The other plug is the speaker input. So we'll go ahead and plug that back into our high level, low level. I've already got the gain set up. I've actually, on this one, I have to turn this all the way down for the main gain. I had Acubase turned up probably about a quarter to halfway, and then the bass turned up about halfway. It's actually a bit loud, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it down. I've got this taken off this clip. All you got to do is just pop it off this clip. So we'll plug our signal wires back into the LC2I. I've already got RCAs ran from here, which go up and go around coming out of the high level to low level. Put this back on. There's another clip right here, this white clip. Just put down there. And tidy your wires up down here. I just tried to jam them in there so they're not going to rattle. And ready to go. I made this little black plastic mount for the LC2I. It mounts down here to the bottom of this bracket. You don't have to do any of that. You can tuck it down here on the back side of it. It was just something I wanted to do. So we have RCA coming up here, and we have our remote turn on coming out of the LC2I going up here also. And for the other part of the amp, we have our ground power, and that's the other end of our RCAs. The amp that we're using actually has this little adapter that comes out, and it's just speaker wire, but it's RCAs on the other end. But our power comes from here, straight off the battery. There's which be careful with this, I've dropped it like 10 times down in here. But there's a little nut. Take that off. Put your wire on there. You can run it around on the back side of this foam. There's a little space to run the wire back there. Comes out right here, goes into our fuse holder, which I just zip tied. You want it to be zip tied to something so it's not bouncing around in here. I've got the fuse out right now, but that's our fuse holder we got from New Concepts. They make some great stuff, really affordable. There's a little tray right here. It's pretty cool. It's kind of a pain to get it open. It's got these little tabs on this part that go down into a slot on the bottom part. And you would think that you need to press the tab in, but it's a lot easier to pull this slot out when you want to pull this up. It's kind of a pain, but it's a little tray made specifically for these wires to go through. And there's one, there's two, three, just a little tray so that make sure nothing gets pinched. So I went ahead and I think I had to move one of these power wires from here to over here, and I tucked these other little red power wires in with it, and then I got the ground wire coming straight off the negative post right here. It's on under this bolt right here. This bolt has the screws on it, I think right here at the end, that have some kind of notch on them, or maybe they're kind of tapered or something, so that this nut doesn't want to come all the way off. It's not meant to come all the way off. That way you don't ever lose it when you're trying to loosen this up. So you really have to hold, you have to get like a screwdriver down here to hold this square head in place while you take that all the way off. It's kind of a pain, but it'll come off. And then there's our ground and our power that run up through the tray. Close that back up. They run right back here. So the wires come up into this umbilical cord type thing. It's a braided loom. I actually get it from where I work. I got a little tape on here to keep everything together, a little shrink wrap, we'll tape on that end, and I got everything we need. We got our power, we got our ground. I have wire ferrules on the end here to keep the copper from deteriorating. They're really cool. Just a little bit of tape on the end to make it look a little better. Remote turn on coming from the LC2I, and this is our signal wire coming from the RCAs. It's actually just a couple RCA ends that I soldered into speaker wire. So it hits speaker wire, then comes back up, and then solders into this adapter that comes with the Rockford sub that we're using. So we're gonna get this all back together. This is actually gonna go up through a hole on this big cover here in the middle, and it just goes in the same way everything came out. So 1, 2, 3. We're gonna leave the connector off. The fuse is still out, so we don't cause any sparks or blow a fuse. Put it through the hole. Pull it through as we're pushing this in here. So when it comes through, all you see is the black braided line. I'm probably gonna end up getting a little grommet to make the hole a little bit smaller. You can stick a finger in there, and it's a little bit bigger than the braided loom. But either way, you can go ahead and put our connector on. It's got your positive right here, and that's where those screws screw down on that. So we got the connector on. Now that we got it up through the hole, we got your positive, negative, remote turn on, and our signal wire. We're gonna go ahead and put the fuse in now. So all we have to do is just lift this up. There's a fuse holder. So this is the sub that I built. I used the Rockford Fosgate P310 sub amp combo. I've had it for a long time. It was really beat up, so I just put it in a new box, built this one myself. It's a down firing with the speaker down there. I got these two little brackets that I use with some bungees to hold it in place. And then on the back side is the connection, and that's where the power remote turn on connection goes. Our phase is going to be on 0. Our input level is going to be on high. And then our auto turn on, that's where your DC offset comes into play. If you were to put those speaker wires straight to the audio input for this, the DC offset would turn it on itself. You wouldn't even need a remote wire, or it can sense audio, so the audio would have turned it on too. But in this case, we have the remote coming from the LC2I, so we'll have that on remote. You can see the gains, we're about 1/4 of the way up. The subs in this car are pretty good, but once they get down probably around 50, 40 hertz is where they really start to fall off. So I got this probably up around 80 hertz just to help fill in anything that those subs aren't, the factory subs aren't able to do. Got the bass boost up probably about halfway. It should be fine. It's been really good. I've already had it in there set up for a while. So what I did, got a couple bungees, we'll move this out of the way. I'll kind of show you what I did here. I just took these bungees, took the hook, hooked them over the end of this trim piece, the panel, one on each of them. Slide the sub up and over them. Push it out of the way. And then hook them onto those hooks that I had screwed on. And these turned out to be just the right length to where when I close the seats, put the seats back up, the back seats, they snug up right up next to the box. So we'll go ahead and we'll connect our connector here. And if for some reason these bungees broke, or if the bracket on the bottom that the bungees connect to broke, I have a bunch of wire here in this umbilical cord thing. If it's accidentally slid around, it's got plenty of movement that it can go to. You can slide around with the sub. That way you aren't ripping any wires out, causing a fire, causing sparks, anything like that. You could always take this and just put it in a little roll, keep it right there. You can see it snugs right up next to the back seats. It has a little bit of room to wiggle around in here, so it's not totally drilled down. The carpet I used is from Crutchfield. This is the gray carpet that you can get from them. I was hoping it would match better to the carpet that's in here, but it's fine, it's good enough. And now I have a couch ottoman in the trunk of a BMW. Sounds pretty good. Can't play anything else, but some royalty-free music for you.
I don't know how well it's gonna pick up.
Yeah, you'll have to put headphones on probably if you actually want to hear any of the bass. You can't really hear anything if you're on your phone or something like that. I don't know what any of this is, so we're just kind of trying a couple of these out. Sounds really good. Easy peasy. The DC offset is the way to go. It's very reliable. It works every time. If you check out 5-Star Car Stereo on YouTube, Instagram, Dean, I think his name's Dean Barnett or Bartlett or something like that. He's the man. He knows all of this. He goes over DC offset in all these videos that he's got like a million times. It's very reliable. He talks about, and it's the way to go if you want to use it. If you want to have some kind of remote turn on. You don't tap into any of these speakers. If you want to tap into anything and not use one of the harnesses, you want to tap into the sub wires. Otherwise, these have no bass in them. And I've seen a couple videos where they installed a subwoofer into an M2 and they used the speakers in the back deck. They have no bass. So you're going to have to crank that subwoofer and everything up all the way to get anything out of it. So you want to use, if you're just going to tap into speaker wires, use the sub wires that we went through and found, or use the harness. It's the way to go.